Hello everyone, welcome back to another Fallout 76 build video. Today we're going to be looking at the Dom Pedro pistol. Now, to get hold of this, you have to get it quick right now because the season is about to end and it is part of the seasonal awards there. And you want to get all of the mods for it. You want to get the explosive mods and all that good stuff, especially the penetrating mod, which really gives this gun a lot more damage. And, getting the extended magazine is very crucial to get 6 shots instead of 4 as well. So make sure you get hold of it while you can, and you can make this really cool build of it. It does quite a lot of damage as well, just being a single-fired pistol, as well as attached with a bunch of explosive and crippling damage. It can really shred targets. It's good for doing grunt hunts, bounty hunts, and even taking on some of the endgame bosses as well from dropping nukes and all that good stuff. It is one of my favorite weapons in the game. Probably my favorite weapon to use right now, especially for farming for things. Getting hold of legendary modules and farming legendary stuff. It's just really good for tackling endgame content and all that stuff. So let's begin and let's jump into the weapon itself. Okay, so here is the Dom Pedro pistol that I have right now. I am not using any of the long barrel or scope or the stock mods that you did get during that mini season. The reason I'm not using those is because I think they look absolutely stupid. I like using the plain old Dom Pedro from the TV show, especially when a roleplay is the Ghoul from the TV show as well. This is just the perfect build for that, honestly. So for the legendary mods, I went for Furious, Explosives, and VAT Optimized. We also have Pinpointers on there for our 4-star legendary mod. To get hold of Pinpointers, you have to go through the raid or, check people's vendors, and hopefully they are selling Pinpointers there. You can usually get it for, 10,000 caps to 15,000 caps, depending on how generous people are feeling on that day. We have the 308 Prime Receiver as well. We have the short barrel, the aligned grip, the Fortunate 6 magazine, which is pretty good because sometimes it won't actually use a bullet, and you won't have, it only has 6 shots, but sometimes it won't use a bullet in the magazine, so you can fire a little bit longer. We also have standard sights, and we have explosive penetrating. Explosive penetrating is what makes this gun really special, honestly. I used this gun when I first got it, just by itself. It only had 4 shots. Didn't really have any of the mods, but as soon as I put explosive penetrating on, that's what really gets the damage going on this weapon there. So that's all the legendary mods that I have on it right now, and it is probably the best that I can come up with for it. You can play around maybe so going with higher critical damage like Vital on 2-star if you want instead of explosive, but I think this works out really good. Now let's look at the armor, and the armor is the very important part, and this took me a long time to get hold of. And it's still not perfected. I'm still waiting to get a little bit more legendary script just to finish off this. But at the moment, we have Lucid, Powered, and Active. That is the 3 legendary mods that we want on every single piece of armor. Right now, I don't have it on every single piece of armor, but my AP regen from Powered is crazy. And the hardest mod to get hold of right now is Active because it only drops during grunt hunts and head hunts. So you have to farm a lot to get hold of this mod. If you don't want to do that, I do recommend using agility on 2-star, so you then have a lot of agility points, and then on the 3-star you can do through hikers or whatever you want to do there. And then it would come to the perk card situation where we would use Action Boy to regen our AP a little bit faster. But I know there's canned coffee and food buffs and all that stuff to regen AP, but a lot of people, especially like myself, I don't like messing on with food buffs and having to worry about that during every fight where I'm taking food buffs and stuff. So I like just having my stats there and ready to go no matter what fight I go into. So that would be my solution if you don't want to farm for the active mod, is to get hold of the agility mod in 2-star and then just running through hikers until you can get hold of the active module. Lucid is also good because we are a Ghoul. We get a 6% damage reduction as well. So I'm currently working on getting that on all my pieces. I have it on pretty much everything apart from one piece at the moment, which is this one. Right now, I just have Mutants, Powered, and Through Hikers, but I am working on getting some more legendary scripts to get Lucid and then get active on this piece as well, because I do have those modules sitting there waiting to go on. But that is it. That is the build right there on the armor, and that is the most important part. Like I said, if you can't get hold of active, agility and through hikers is fine. We just have to play around with the perk cards a little bit there. So let's talk about the build itself real quick. Okay, so here is the build that I am using for the Dom Pedro. I have played around a lot with this, and it has been my most used weapon, so I have done a lot of testing. And this is what I've come up with to be the best to use. So we have Strength at 9, we have 13 Perception, 4 in Endurance, 2 in Charisma, 3 Intelligence, 12 Agility, and 13 Luck. So our legendary perk cards for the build are Strength, 2, perception 2, endurance 2, intelligence at 3, agility at 4, and luck at 2. Still working on getting these leveled up, but that is what I'm running with right now. Now for the cards themselves, let's talk you through some alternatives as well. So on strength, we have easy target, scatter shot, bandolier, blocker, and arms of steel. Since I'm not using, you know, through hikers and all that stuff, and, you know, things to reduce my carry weights, I'm actually having to put bandolier on there. You don't really need it. You don't need to carry a lot of ammo for this. The great thing about the Dom Pedro pistol is that, you know, it is a single fire, so you don't burn through ammo a lot. And, you know, I carry about 2,000 shots, but you really only need to carry probably like 150. So you don't need to carry a lot of weapon. I just have bandolier in there just for the sake of it, really, because there's not really many points that you can spend. The main thing here in this build is that agility and luck need to be maxed out, and perception. That's it, really, you know. Then, you know, you can play around and put whatever you like in from there. So we have blocker there, so we take less damage from melee attacks. Since we're not on power armor and stuff, I feel like it's necessary to kind of have that in there. And we have arms of steel, which gives us better accuracy as well. So that is my strength category there. Also in strength, but you can play around with just to get a little bit extra damage. So we have shotgun champ here. So this gives a plus 10% damage to crippled targets per projectile your weapon fires. So unfortunately, the Dom Pedro only fires 1 projectile. However, it does splash damage. So it has like an extra, you know, 3 damage points there. But you can still get an extra 10% damage there if you want to do that just from 1 projectile. So it'll go nice with Deal Sealer, which we have in perception. Just in case you want to have a little bit extra damage, I just wanted to mention that. And then in perception, we have Number Cruncher, Tormentor, Tank Killer, Center Massacre, Skeet Shooter, Awareness, and Deal Sealer. Skeet Shooter, again, is not necessary. It's just I had an extra point. I just put it in there just to have a little bit more accuracy with the Dom Pedro, because this gun outside of VATS is not great. However, we are using a lot of VATS. It's just in case, you know, I don't have the opportunity to use VATS. If it's like a stealth character or something like that we're taking on during a grunt hunt, then it's just kind of nice to have that. For endurance, we have Ironclad and Fireproof. We don't really need anything else in there. You can play around with having glow and gut stuff and, you know, having glow give you extra damage, but it's not really necessary if I'm being totally honest. I think glow perks are a bit overrated on being a ghoul, if I'm being honest. You know, even going back to perception real quick and talking about, you know, certain ghoul perks, we also have Eye of the Hunter. This really doesn't give you much of a benefit at all. I've tried it out. It mainly gives you the same accuracy. I don't know what's going on with this perk, but it just does not feel right at all. Mainly, I would suppose this would probably work better with a sniper or something along those lines. So in Charisma, we have Tenderizer, just for a bit more damage. We have First Aid, Field Surgeon, and Demolition Expert. Some great perks to throw in there, just to have some extra heals. Especially since we're not on power armor, we can't spam the stim packs as much, so we're able to get a lot more heal from our stim packs there. Now, agility is probably the most important one here. We have Gunslinger Master, Gunslinger, Gunslinger Expert, Guerrilla Expert, Guerrilla Master, and Enforcer. Now, I did have Guerrilla instead of Enforcer. However, I decided to go for 2-star Enforcer just to get 50% extra limb damage, especially when taking on bosses like Earl, for example. Once they're starting to, you know, do a lot more crippling damage, this really helps out, giving us the limb damage there. So Enforcer is great for that. I wish I did have enough points just to get it to 3-star, but unfortunately I can't do that. Also, I don't have Guerrilla in here because it's a 15% range to close enemies. Now, if an enemy is close to you with the Dom Pedro, you're more likely going to just kill yourself, because the gun is absolutely brutal. You do so much damage to yourself, even fireproof, and having a bunch of damage reduction is not going to save you from the amount of damage when somebody runs up on you there. So I feel like Guerrilla isn't necessary. However, you can play around with that. You can either use Enforcer or Guerrilla there. I found Enforcer to do a little bit more damage personally, for the limbs and stuff, and being able to cripple targets. So, you know, when we look at perception here, we have Awareness and Deal Sealer. Deal Sealer is going to give us an extra 10% damage for each impairment. This classes as crippling as well. So combining that with Shotgun Champ, you can get an extra 20% damage if you wanted to do that. So yeah, there's definitely different ways to go, but this is how I really like the setup for the Dom Pedro. Now for luck, we have better criticals, Ricochet, 4-leaf Clover. I think is a really good perk for this build, just because the Dom Pedro is not VATS accurate massively, so having 4-leaf Clover to generate our critical meter if we miss in VATS is really good. We have Class Freak, a 2-star. I couldn't get it a 3-star, unfortunately, but 50% is enough. We have Critical Savvy, Faulty Spots, and Wild West Hands. Wild West Hands has not been my friend today. It hasn't really procced as much, but I feel like it is pretty much necessary to have this if you are a ghoul, and pretty much on any build, because it gives you the chance to not have to reload your weapon there. It is really good. And Faulty Spots, again, just an extra 15% weak point damage, which is fantastic. And there isn't really anything else that you can put in. Look, maybe you can do Grim Reaper's Sprint. If, for example, you are not going to be having the active mods, that will regen AP for you. Grim Reaper's Sprint is a really good perk and a bit underrated. It's not good against bosses, but it is good for doing any type of ad clearing. For example, like if you're fighting Earl, you're shooting the Wendigo. Even if you kill multiple Wendigo with the, like, during VATS, it will actually count towards Grim Reaper's Sprint as well, which is very nice. So you can do that with the Dom Pedro. I've done it plenty of times. Also, if you don't have the active mod, like I mentioned before, you would take off probably Enforcer, or you know, just even getting like 2-star Action Boy in there could work out great for you, just to regen your AP. So that is the build that I have for the Dom Pedro pistol, and it is working absolutely fantastic for me, and I never want to change it. I absolutely love using it. Another vital thing that I want to go over is the mutations. So the mutations, we have Adrenal Reaction, which gives us an extra 5% damage per kill while on a kill streak, which is nice. Again, if you're using the Dom Pedro for doing grunt hunts and stuff like that, you might want to spec more into doing adrenaline-based stuff, and adrenal, for example, because you can put adrenal on your armor pieces, which gives you more damage per kill streak, for example, and then you can mess around with putting adrenaline perk on there, so you can have a bunch of stuff like that. But we are focusing on doing reverse onslaught and single target damage mainly, so I'm not really bothered about that. Bird Bones, I highly recommend having this, because this gives you +4 agility there, which is very vital to having more AP in the game. Then we have Eagle Eyes. This gives you a +50% crit damage, another vital one. Egghead isn't really important. It just gives you extra intelligence, so it's not really vital to have in this build. We have Marsupial as well, just to have better jump height, which is actually really helpful doing a build with the Dom Pedro, because of those, like, you know, for ghouls and stuff that run up into your face when you're fighting other targets. It's really good to be able to jump at a height, VATS, and hit them, so that way you don't take any damage. And then we have Speed Dimming, which gives you 20% move speed and 30% reload speed, which does help with reloading the Dom Pedro there. So that is all of the mutations that we have in this, and we will give you a build now without any legendary perk cards, like I always do. Okay, so here is the build without any legendary perk cards. So we have 5 in strength, 15 perception, 1 endurance, 2 charisma, 3 intelligence, 15 agility, and 15 in luck. Now, for what I stuck with here, we just have easy target and scatter shot. That is more than enough to have in strength there. Then we have Number Cruncher, Tank Killer, Centamascus, Awareness, Deal Sealer, Tormentor, and Skeet Shooter. So we pretty much have the same perception. We have Adamantium Skeleton in endurance. We have Tenderizer. In intelligence, we have Demolition Expert. I forgot to mention this in the previous one there, but Demolition Expert is really good because it stacks with the explosive mod we have on our Dom Pedro, and especially since it is an explosive weapon as well with the penetrating mod, it does get a lot of benefits from having Demolition Expert. So you definitely want to put this on. I don't recommend using Grenadier at all, because Grenadier is actually going to absolutely ruin yourself, and Grenadier is actually bugged right now, and it's still not even helping out on explosive radius or anything, so I would just recommend sticking with Demolition Expert. On agility, we have the same thing. We have Gunslinger Master, Gunslinger Guerrilla Master, Guerrilla Expert, Gunslinger Expert, and then Enforcer. And then in luck, we have the same build as well. We have better criticals, class free, critical savvy, faulty spots, wild west hands, ricochet, and four leaf clover there. So that is the build without any legendary perks on. And before we end the video, I just want to quickly give you guys a tip with the Dom Pedro pistol while I'm around my camp here. So one thing I have noticed, and it is very critical, I don't know if this happens on PC, but on Xbox it is doing this. So if you fire the Dom Pedro in third person, you see how kind of slow it is as it's shooting? It's not great. If you go in first person, look at the difference in the speed of how it's shooting. So that's one of the downsides of the Dom Pedro. You have to play in first person. If you play in third person, you are really sacrificing like DPS because of just how much slower it shoots. I don't know why it does that. But I feel like it is a critical point to talk about, and to make sure that you're all aware when using the Dom Pedro, pretty much stay in first person the whole time, because that'll keep your damage and rate of fire up a lot more. I don't know if that's just on Xbox, but yeah, it's unfortunate that it does that. But thank you guys so much for watching the video and checking it out. If you have any questions or comments about the gun or the build, feel free to leave them down below. If you have any tips as well you want to share with the build for anybody else, you know, maybe he's taking the Dom Pedro a little bit further, feel free to leave it down below as well. And thank you guys so much for watching the video. Hit that like button, hit that sub button. I've been Pixels, my awesome viewers. I'll catch you guys in the next one.